Welcome to another ukulele tutorial. I'm Lara, and today we're doing a short lesson on chucking. Some people also refer to it as chunking. It's the same thing. Essentially, this is a method of using our ukulele to create a percussive sound, sort of like a drum, to create rhythm along with our strumming. I'm going to show you two methods for chucking. The first method is more traditional. I remember when I started learning this method, it did take me a while, but once you get that rhythm into your right hand, you've got it for life. It's kind of like riding a bike. The second method is more unconventional, but it's a bit easier to learn, and you get pretty much the same sound out of it. I highly recommend that you learn both methods, as you may have some strumming patterns or some songs that you prefer one method over the other. Let's get started with our first method. Here's what the chucking sounds like. You get a ch kind of sound. If we apply this to a strumming pattern, it creates a sense of rhythm, sort of like we're playing a drum, along with our strumming. Now let's take a close look at how we play this. First, we'll take a look at the traditional method, which is to use your index finger to cross the strings at the same time that your palm is hitting the strings. Here's what it sounds like. The sense of timing is very important here. If your index finger crosses the strings before your palm gets there to mute them, then you're going to get too much sound out of the strings. For example, that's not what you're after, so you want to time your index finger with your palm. If your palm hits first, you'll still get an okay sound, but from this position it doesn't leave your index finger with much power, so it helps to have this momentum of your hand moving down so that you can sweep your index finger across the strings the same time that your palm is hitting. Now we can incorporate this into an easy pattern of down, up, chuck, up. As you practice this pattern and bring it up to speed, over time it will sound like this. Our second method sounds like this. It's a knocking motion, and you may get a bit of a knocking sound on your instrument in addition to the ch sound. Now if we apply this to a strumming pattern, here's what it sounds like. It sounds very similar to our first method of chucking, but it's a very different technique. Let's take a close look at this one. For this method, we're using our knuckles to mute the strings, so the technique is very different, but the sound is similar. So in our first method, we were crossing over all the strings. For this one, we're muting them just by knocking on the strings, and we can also get a bit of a knocking sound on the instrument depending on where we're hitting the strings. So comparing the two, they're very similar. If we incorporate this technique into the same down, up, chuck, up pattern that we did with the first method, here's what that looks like. After you mute the strings, there's an upstrum. And there are multiple ways that you could do this. So depending on where your knuckles land and your fingertips are, you can pull up on the strings as the upstrum. You may also find that your index finger lands just below the third string. And if that's the case, you can simply pull up on strings 3 and 4 as your upstrum. Here's what this sounds like. As you learn these chucking methods, be patient with yourself and give it time. With regular practice, you'll get there, and eventually this will be second nature for your right hand, and you'll be able to incorporate these chucking methods in so many different types of strumming patterns. Here's an example using the first chucking method, and this pattern is down, chuck, up, down, chuck, up. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. And here's the same example using the second chucking method. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for subscribing. Now have fun practicing your chucking, and thank you for watching.